Hello. I'm talking today about gender statistics. I began working in the United Nations Statistical Office in 1980. And that was a time when there were international conferences on women, a decade for women. And at that time, we would get many phone calls from the media asking us, what is the situation of women in various countries of the world? And are women making progress in their efforts towards equality? The problem was, even though we had all of this data, we couldn't answer the question because gender is a cross-cutting field and it goes across health statistics, literacy, education statistics, labor statistics, on and on. And there was no one that had put it together. And so what we did in the United Nations Statistics Division was organize things so that the data was put into a common framework and we could look at it as a whole and we could monitor the situation of women over time. And so the gender statistics field grew out of that. And I'm happy to say it is still important today. One of the things about gender statistics is that it is a field that is directly interested in policy because you're looking at gender differences and the inequalities of women and men, and you're focusing on what can be done to improve the situation. And the first element in trying to make improvements is to have a correct diagnosis through what the statistics say. But oftentimes, we do not have good statistics on women because much of the official statistics are not oriented towards the special roles that women have. For example, years ago, there was little done on women's unpaid work in the home. Now we know that that constitutes a very big burden in every country of the world. And to have numbers on that is very important in understanding what can be done to change the situation. So this was a new field. We had to start with time use surveys that told us how much time women and men spend in the domestic chores in the home. Violence against women was something, we had all kinds of data on violence that happened outside the home, but not violence in the home. And even in labor force, we do things that look at the formal jobs, the women in professions. And we had much poorer data, if any, on women in low income on jobs that didn't require much skill. So we had to improve the methods to, first of all, identify women who many of whom were working in manufacturing in the home as in the labor force. And we also had to ensure that we had better methods to understand those occupations that are typically done by women. Home-based work in manufacturing or services, domestic work, street vending, all of those are jobs that women have, but we don't have good data. So this is what gender statistics does. It compiles the data in a way that users have access to it, and it also looks at methods to improve the data that we have on gender. I worked in the UN Statistics Division for over 20 years, and in 2001 I retired. And at that point, I began working with a non-governmental organization known as WIEGO, Women in Informal Employment, Globalizing and Organizing. And this organization focuses on the working poor, especially women, but oftentimes because development policies often don't spend enough time talking about work, we have to talk about women and men as workers to try to get work into the development agenda. And then within that, we focus on the jobs that are often done by women. And so in this, we sort of bring the voice of informal workers to the table of people who are changing the methods, or let's say revising the methods by which statistics are collected. We work, for example, with the new group that's trying to revise the status of employment classification. Because on the one hand, we have all of these self-employed, and on the other, we have the wage workers. That's what our basic division is. But now we have a lot of workers that are in between. They may look like wage workers, but basically they're casual workers that are self-employed. So we need a new category. And so the new revision is going to have changes that better reflect the structure of the labor force and better reflect the kinds of low-wage workers that WIEGO is supporting. We also make publications that put together as best we can data on these workers. So this is what I do now in my work with WIEGO, and it's getting to know the situation of informal workers and bringing their voice to the international forums that deal with statistics.